Welcome, everybody, to the Hounds podcast. This is your home for field trialing and deer dog hunting. It'll be stories and discussions on the world of dog hunting. So let's drop the gate, cast your hounds, and get ready for another episode of the Hounds podcast. The Hounds podcast is proud to partner with Outdoor Dog Supply again for the 2025 season. Outdoor Dog Supply is the leader in online garment sales with their world-class trade-in programs. These guys are not just a business, they're also houndsmen and women too. They test their products out in the field and really put them to the test. Get the latest in garment equipment, stay locked and ready with field trial equipment, collars, leashes, and so much more. Visit their website today at outdoordogsupply.com, and we want to thank Outdoor Dog Supply for their support not only for the podcast, but in the field trials across the country. When you're looking for your next purchase and equipment, keep Outdoor Dog Supply in mind. Now let's get this episode started, guys. Thank y'all so much. Welcome, everybody, to the Hounds podcast. In this episode, I'm riding solo one more time. I got a guest that is very close to getting lined up. I do apologize for that, but there is something I'd like to go over. It's been a pretty hot topic on some different points. Excuse me. Over the past couple weeks on Facebook, I've seen a lot of talk about it, and maybe this will help some people. Not only that, I know down at Sellhorns this weekend, Kenny Dean and a few others are putting on the judges class, and that sounds like such a great thing. I'm hoping more pens will take heed, and more people will take heed, and that becomes more of a thing. What I was thinking about today, I was like, man, I got to get something out for tomorrow. And I was like, you know what? Maybe we ought to talk about rules. We ought to go over the judge's book. I know I get a lot of questions all the time about, how do I get a hold of a book? What are the rules? A lot of guys have never seen it or, just don't know. Maybe don't know how to get a hold of one. So there are a few things. I'm not going to get boring with it. I'm not going to read it word for word. I'm not going to go through all the things. But I have both the Nationals book and the Masters book, both updated 2023. I don't think there's been any updates since. And if there is, I will hopefully catch it. If I remember them, I will catch it while I'm reading it and while I'm looking through it. And we can kind of correct that as we go, and I'll try to be as right and accurate as I can. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through mainly the important sections. A lot of this stuff is probably going to sound basic to a lot of people that have been in it for a while, but maybe there's some stuff that you forgot. I know every time I take a peek and take a gander at the book, then it kind of refreshes some stuff in my memory whenever that time comes around. And before I do forget, I need to do our Bible verse of the week and our quote of the week. Let's see. The Bible verse of the week is going to be from Zechariah 14:9. And the Lord will be king over all the earth. On that day there will be one Lord. His name alone will be worshipped. That is the verse for the week. And the motivational quote for the week is, if your dreams don't scare you, they are too small, from Richard Branson. I hope that does speak a little to everybody, and let's get back to what we were talking about. So, like I said, I have both the Master's book and the National book sitting here, ready to go, and I'm going to kind of look at the differences between the two. There's not much, but there is some. So, let's start off. We're going to go with the old school. I say old school, but the OG, the National. We want to start off in the scoring in the field. That seems to be the simplest place to start. It seems to be the easiest place to start. And I know there's still a lot of questions with that kind of stuff. So, let's start with let's start with the Nationals. And you know what? We're going to save the speed and drive for the last. Let's start with the hunting. The hunting seems to be one that I think we can touch on, and it is pretty self-explanatory. So Nationals. So I'm just going to read it how it's wrote. So no hound during the first hour of hunting in any one day's hunt shall be voted for more than 10 points for his work done within that hour. No more than 15 points for the hunting during the second hour. No more than 20 for the third, 25 for the fourth, and no more than 30 for the fifth. The perfect hound can score only 100 points in hunting in one day. So, I've never seen anybody give a 5-point hunting score. I don't know that even exists. I think it has to be, I don't see where it says that in here, but pretty much a minimum of 10 points. And it goes up 5 points per hour. There is no minimum points per hour, as in if it's in the fifth hour and you see a dog and he hunts for a minute or two and you think he deserves some points and you want to give him 10 points hunting, then give him 10 points hunting. You're probably going to be questioned in the judge's room. I will promise you that. But, that's usually you're giving on the upper side of the score. 30 points hunting is a great hunting score, and that's all judge's discretion. Give what you think. Maybe it's the third hour and you see a dog really hunting his tail off, then give him the 20 points. Give him the 20 points. Or maybe you see him and he's just hunting a little bit, give him the 10. So you kind of have to use your discretion, use your judgment, and kind of make a judgment call on that. And that's one of the biggest things with the hunting score. So the biggest difference, and I'd actually forgotten about this until it was brought up at our hunt. The hunting is a slightly different. The increments are the same as far as the maximum number of points that you can get during each hour. So the first hour is 10, second 15, third 20, 25, 30, for the fifth hour. So, but the only difference is the Masters has a minimum score, which I really appreciate. I really do appreciate that. So the first hour, you can give it's a maximum of 10, minimum of 10. Second hour, maximum of 15, minimum of 10. Third hour, maximum 20, minimum 15. Fourth hour, maximum 25, minimum 20. And the fifth hour, 30, minimum 25. So pretty much it's the same thing as far as maximum score, but you cannot give anything less than 5 points less than the maximum for each hour. So if you give a hunt score during the fourth hour and you don't think he deserves the full credit, then the least amount of credit he can get is 20 points. So I do like that. That's a conversation that gets brought up a lot on a hunting score, and I've heard some people say, their opinions is if you see that dog and you're giving it enough credit to award him a hunting score, then he should get the max points. I've heard people that fully believe that, fully stand by that, and I have no ill will towards that comment. There are certain times in a hunt where I watch a dog, and even if it's in the last hour, and if he breaks down and he hunts for a few minutes and he's doing an okay job, but he's hunting, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, but he doesn't just stick. He doesn't glue it. He doesn't hold around. He's flipping over every leaf. Maybe he just stopped for a minute and was hunting the edges, walking the path, walking the beat down paths, maybe busting over into it a little bit, and then all of a sudden a race broke out close and he dropped that chase and went off to it. I'm not going to give him 30 points for that. Maybe he was only there for like 3 minutes and I only got to watch him for just a few minutes. But he deserves something, in my opinion. For something like that, I would probably give like 20. Somewhere around that. It's the last hour of the hunt. The running had broke down. You were trying to get something going. And you did what you were supposed to do. You deserve a decent score. You don't deserve 30 points, but I'd give you 20 for something like that. That's where that comes into play. But now, of course, like I said, if it's a Masters hunt, you have to give him at least 25. So that's really your biggest difference with those two. Let's talk about endurance. This is one that, and we're going to save the touchy ones for last. So we'll start off again with hang on, let me find my places here. Hunting, trailing, speed and drive, blah, 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 blah. There it is. Okay. So, endurance. We're going to start with like I said, we're going to start with the Nationals, do the Nationals again. So, all hounds that finish a field trial and that have scored in either hunting or trailing and have also scored in speed and drive during the entire hunt with a sum total of 40 points or more will automatically earn endurance. Score a quarter of his or her total score across the board, beginning with 10 points, adding in multiples of 5 where permissible. This is only to be computed on the final day of the hunt. So that's why you don't ever see it in your national hunts until the last day. So to be computed only on the final day on the hounds that have finished the trials. Each day's scores will count, but figured only on the last day. The endurance score will be figured on the last day and the total posted on the daily sheets and endurance column before making sum total before starting to figure out the HGA. Let's see. The results. Each hound getting endurance score will have received it from his other classes. So in other words, it receives those points from the speed and drive, hunting, and the trailing. No hound, therefore, can have an endurance score he or she has not earned from other scores. To get an endurance score, hounds must have scored in either hunting or trailing, as well as having scored also in speed and drive during the entire trial. No hound, therefore, can have an endurance score where he or she has not earned it. So, here's the kicker. I know probably a lot of y'all listening like, well, I'm always seeing these hunts and national hunts, and there's these dogs, all the dogs have endurance scores. Exception to fox pens. It's the last section of the endurance section in the nationals. Whereas a hound, exception for fox pen, whereas a hound does not have to score in hunting or trailing during the entire trial to get an endurance score. So if it's on the outside, it has to have both. If it's on the inside, it has an exception to the rule. So you can score in endurance strictly on your speed and drive scores. That's for nationals. So, score of a quarter of his or her total points across the board. So, your dog scores 200 points, speed and drive, and a fox pen, it gets 50 points endurance. If it scores, we'll say 160 points speed and drive and 40 points hunting, that's 200 points together. Then that's 50 endurance points. That's for nationals. Now, if it's a low scoring hunt, it's one of those hunts, and your dog goes out there and scores 35 points, that's the only thing it puts up. It doesn't get any endurance points. It has to have a sum total of 40 points or more. So, and that's for HGA. That's for the Nationals HGA. All right. So, let's move to the Masters. Masters got it laid out simple. Hounds should be scored in endurance each day of a trial if the following provisions are met. Hounds must score a minimum of 60 points speed and dray per day. Excuse me, I think I've fumbled that word. Hounds must score a minimum of 60 points per day. Hounds must score in the speed and drive class. So, if your dog goes out and puts out 30 to hunt and 15 to run, then he's not getting any endurance. That was only 45 points, so he's not getting that 60-point minimum.
Now, if he goes out and puts up 100 points hunting and 0 point speed and drive, guess what? He still has 0 points endurance. Hounds must score in the speed and drive. Now, here's the kicker, okay? Here's the big kicker. This is the biggest difference, in my opinion, between the Nationals and the Masters. I love the way the Masters does it. I'm a big fan. Now, there's nothing wrong with how the Nationals does it, and please don't take any of this as me siding with one versus the other. You know, I have my, I like both. There's both. There's reasons to run both out there. 100% reasons. So, day one, you get 10% of your total. Day two is 20% of your total for that day. Day three, 30% of the total of that day. And if there's a day four, 40%. So those third days, man, if you have a great third day, that's how you come from behind. That's how you see these dogs at these Masters hunts come out of freaking left field and have a great last day. And it's like, oh, hell, where'd that dog come from? Yeah, because he got 30% of his freaking score for that day added to it. That's why you see that so much in Masters hunts, is because of that percentage jump. And I fully love that. You know, there's the third day, that's where champions are made. Fourth day, that's where legends are made. I mean, come on now. You know, those dogs deserve more credit, in my opinion. You know, they deserve more credit on the last day than they do the first day. So I'm a huge fan of that. So, you know, if you want some for examples, if a dog goes out and scores 100 points on the first day, he gets 10 points endurance for day one. He gets 100 points speed and drive. 100 points GTP. Gets 100 points. 110, excuse me. Golly, I'm fumbling bad. 100 points speed and drive, 10 points endurance, then 110 points is your grand total. That's your GTP. If he goes out on the third day and puts up 100 points, he gets 30 points 30 points endurance. So he gets 130 points. Now, when you're talking small numbers like that, you're like, oh, that's not that big of a difference. Okay, well, let's kick it. Let's go drastic. Okay, for mathematical purposes, and I mean, I'm having to think extra hard here. Okay, so the dog goes up and puts 1,000 points up day one. Well, he gets 100 points GTP. 100 points endurance. 1,100 points GTP. Third day, he puts up 1,000 points. He gets 300 points endurance. 1,300 300 points GTP. There's your difference. That's where it really strikes. These big scoring hunts, these big time, putting up 700 points on the last day, 500 points on the last day. 30% of 500, it's like 300 points, not 300 points. 175 points, something like 150 points, something like that. Somewhere in that range. See, I'm not mathing right now. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not doing it. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. Like, it's a huge jump compared from day one to day three. That's why you see those dogs come out of left field that have a really, really good, strong last day. And I don't know. I'm a big fan of it. So, the Hounds Tales podcast would like to take a minute and talk about our friends over at Cajun Lights. When pleasure running at night or judging those nighttime field trials, you can put your trust in Cajun Lights. With the economical Cajun Bayou for the every now and then light user, the Cajun Micro for the nighttime feeds and around the house times, then the top level Cajun Blinder for those hardcore crossing getters at night. The Cajun Lights are headlamp style light that free up your hands for voice recorders or your GPS. They offer flood style lights in red, amber, and a white walking light. Then the top of the line 4-level main beam light. If you're having a hard time catching crossings at night, give the Cajun Light a try. And the red and amber setting to catch the game without
distracting them, and with the easy flick of a switch, go back to your main beam light to catch your hounds in action and get those numbers. Visit their website today at CajunLights.com, and at the checkout, make sure you fill out the survey after your purchase and select Hounds Tales Podcast to receive 5% off your next purchase with Cajun Lights. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Let's talk about some trailing here. Trailing. Let's start with the Nationals again. We'll keep consistent with what we're doing, okay? All right. Hounds should not be scored in trailing more than 30 points in any one interval of 20 minutes. No hound shall receive maximum of 30 points at any one interval unless it produces the fox or coyote or wolf. Speed and drive and endurance are scored in this following matter. Okay, never mind. Excuse me, I read too far there. So, if I'm understanding correctly, okay, to receive full trailing is 30 points, but you have to produce the game, and that's in both rule books across the board. In order to receive the maximum score, you have to produce the game. Now, you can receive 10 points, 15, 20, 25, all those. And you see it sometimes. This is one of those ones, and it's the exact same as trailing. There is no difference between masters and, there is no difference between. Both of them are receive in any 20-minute interval. So, it's possible to get a trailing score at 7 o'clock and another trailing score at 7:28. If you timed it out right, you get 2 trailing scores, bam, you got them. So, here's where there's a lot of commotion about your trailing scores. You always see people are nervous, and I get it. People that don't understand why you're nervous. In a GTP hunt, it doesn't matter as much. Obviously, getting a trailing score is a huge accomplishment. That's a big thing, especially out here in the pen. In the wild too. Out in the open, yes, that's a big thing too. It's massive. Happens more. Just because that's the outside. That's the outside hunting. It's way more. It requires more hunting. It requires dogs to be actively trying to trail game up. There's not game around every corner. So getting a trailing score, you look at most of your results, it's not very often that you see more than a handful of trailing scores in one hunt in the wire. That being said, talking about an HGA hunt, giving a trailing score is massive. And we'll get into the breakdowns in a little bit and kind of explain a little bit better why that is. So that's why it's so important. Hey, bud. What? You want to come talk? Come here. Come here. Walker. Come here. Come here. Come here. Can you come say hi? Say hi, bud. He say hi.
Hi. No, he's not doing that.
What?
Yeah.
What? Say, I've been outside playing. Yeah. Say, I've been outside playing. And say, getting close to bedtime. Me and Mom have been playing. Tell everybody what you been doing. Playing. Are you gonna go play down here?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, go play. Daddy's gonna keep recording, okay?
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. So what I was saying was, when you're HGA hunts, you're talking about adding a whole nother category, and we'll get into this a little bit more and explain a little bit more. But you're talking about adding a whole nother column of points to a certain dog. So we'll kind of break that down a little bit harder here in a little bit. And this is one that I've seen some different points, some different ideas, some different thoughts on how this should be done. So this is the way that there's two ways I was taught. I've been taught that you give a trailing score, that's it. It's a trailing score, nothing else. The dog trailed it, that's what you're supposed to score it as, and you call it a day. Okay? Now, I've also been told that to be trailing, the dog had to be hunting. If you trail and you get 30 points and produce the game, the dog is now running. So what does all that mean? So a lot of your hunters, and I typically agree with this. I typically agree. I've only been fortunate enough to give 2 trailing scores in my entire career so far. But I think I do agree with this statement, and I tend to lean that direction of, and I've looked, it's not in the rule books. It's not in the rule books that this has to be done. Y'all excuse him, he's running around chasing the dog. It's not in the rule books that this is a requirement. This is something that this is something that seems to be passed down and used. So, like I said, if a dog trails, produces game, he had to be hunting to trail. Now he's running. Okay? The dog would get the maximum hunting score, the maximum trailing score, and getting a running alone score. I know, for example, I'll tell you about the one that I got. And this is, to me, this is textbook. And other judges that I've talked to that I have a lot of respect for, have agreed with me that this is textbook trailing score. I was very lucky. It was at pools, of course. This is when Bookerville was a flat-out cutover. You could see just as far as you could want to see. You could see dogs for miles. So I watched this dog coming out of the Booker Road, go into Bookerville, back towards the A and B pen. Okay, I'm watching this dog. He is just he's hunting his tail off. He's going over trees. I mean, just working absolutely nose to the ground. And working his tail off. He's doing such a good job. I mean, I'm already like, all right, this is great. I'm watching him. I'm watching him through binoculars. I'm kind of pulling out, walking, getting a little bit closer to him. As I'm getting closer to him, I see probably about 100 yards, 150 yards down, I see a fox pop out of a lap pile. And he goes and runs down into the bottom. So where I was standing, you could see it goes down into a bottom. I watched the fox go down to the bottom. It's a tree line, and then it comes up out of that bottom, goes back into another section of cutover, and you can see pretty good again. You can see really good. You can see everything that you want to see. If once that dog would come out of there, you're going to be able to see it. So I watched that fox go down into that bottom. Okay, I'm watching this dog hunt. I mean, he's hunting for a few minutes. Then he gets close to that lap pile, and he hunts all over that lap pile. Then he gets off the lap pile, follows where that fox. Literally, I just watched that fox go down into that bottom. He gets down into that bottom, and he's hunting his tail off. And I'm like, well, this is about to be it. This is about to be it right here. I just knew it. And sure enough, I watched the fox pop out the bottom, and that dog go into full cry. I mean, just barking every freaking breath. I watched the fox come out of the go into the cutover, and I watched the dog come out 5-10 seconds behind him. Dog hunted. The dog trailed it. The dog jumped it. I gave him max points as much as I can across the board. That's what I gave him for that right there. He got 30 points to trail. I don't remember what hour it was. Whatever the hour it was, I gave him the max for that, and I gave him a running alone. Now, the coolest thing is I knew that he was going back towards the front gate. I knew it was enough time for me to get up there. So I hightailed it. I said, maybe the work I just saw this dog deserves as much as I can possibly get him. Maybe he'll pick up another dog. And sure enough, I'm getting up there and I'm hauling tail. And I get up there and I'm listening as I'm running. I hear one or two more dogs follow in and file in there with them. I'm like, oh man, here we go. I get up there and I stop. And about the time I stop, the fox come out. Here come that dog that trailed. And then two more dogs behind him. So now, and we'll get into this, now that dog just got 35 points. And his 20 points doesn't count anymore. So that dog got everything you could possibly dream of in about 5 minutes of work. Everything you could dream of. But that right there is an ideal situation. Obviously, you don't always have that. That's why trailing scores are always so hard to give. You don't have the blessing of a cutover like I did for that hunt. You know, sometimes you got to be out there in the woods. You got tall woods, and you need to be able to watch and look for that fox and or that coyote. You know, maybe that coyote squatted, and that's the example that you need. And dog come through, hit the trail, hunted it up, hunt, picked him up, and coyote got to moving, the dog jumped. That's trailing. You know? So that's how I interpret trailing. I would love to hear other opinions. I definitely have asked a lot of questions, and that seems to be a pretty good explanation of how a trailing score should be giving in the wire. I've never judged an outside hunt, so I have an idea. It would be close to the same as far as that goes. I don't see why it would be much different than what I'm explaining to you. But so there's your trailing. All right, now
we're going to take a quick second and pause this episode and talk about our partners over at Elite Nutrition. Our hounds, they're athletes, guys. They give us their all each and every time that they're casted. Elite Nutrition offers an all-natural products to give your dogs the natural benefits they deserve. From the Canine Remove, an all-natural wormer, to the Electro Boost paste for an electrolyte replenishment, body fluid balance, and blood flow improvement. They also have products like Active Dog Powder for recovery and joint muscle support, Essential Dog Powder for daily vitamins and minerals, probiotics, prebiotics, and enzymes, and then the Canine Lactate Powder for nursing dogs to help with milk supply. There are tons of other products for y'all to check out at CajunLights.com, then click on the Elite Nutrition section to explore. When you go check out, only at CajunLights.com, use the code HTElite10 to receive 10% off your Elite Nutrition products. Again, that's HTELITE, the number 10, to receive 10% off Elite Nutrition products only via CajunLights.com. I've been using their products over the past couple months, and I could not be happier with the results. See for yourself today, and we want to thank Elite Nutrition for taking a step forward into this field trial sport. Now, let's get back to the episode, guys.
Let's get into the big one, okay? I say the big one. Probably the most common. Speed and drive, okay? All right. Again, let's start off with the Nationals, okay? The hound leading the pack shall be scored 35 points. The second hound should be scored 30 points. The third hound, 25. Fourth, 20. Other hounds in the pack shall be scored 15 points each. That's actually a typo in there. I've never noticed that. It says 13 points each, but it's definitely 15 points. No one hound shall be scored more than 35 points in any one interval of 10 minutes. Hounds shall only be scored for their best position during the 10-minute interval. All right. So, the Masters is the same as far as the first place to fifth place, and then pack scores from there on. And we'll get into, there's two different ways, I believe, in both. I believe in both, maybe not. Okay, so anyway, All right. So, big differences, okay? The 10-minute interval. This is where it gets a little wonky, okay? And it's a lot easier if you see this. I'll try to have a picture maybe posted in the comments on the Facebook post of the breakdown and how it is kept. And this is where it gets I'm so glad that we don't have to do this by hand anymore. I had this conversation with Cliff Parker the other day. I was like, man, could you imagine the impatience of people if we had to score by hand now? I don't think nobody would come. I really don't. But so the best way that I can explain this, okay? There's a breakdown in the rule book, and this is for nationals now, okay? So a dog scores 25 points at 8:18, scores 35 points at 8:22, and then scores 15 points at 8:29, okay? So at first thought, and this is what I would have thought too, you would have thought, okay, 8:18 and 8:22, that's 4 minutes apart. 8:18 and 8:29 is 11 minutes apart. So you're going to break it down between the first two scores. So you'd think he would keep 35 points. That's not correct, actually. So it's a 10-minute interval. So with them being that close together, you're actually using the middle score as your 10-minute interval. It's 10 minutes before, 10 minutes after. Okay? So that middle score was at 8:22. So 4 minutes before that, he scored 25 points. 8:22, he scored 35. And 7 minutes after that, he scored 15. Okay? So you're like, okay. So he would keep the 35 points. For those three crossings, he would keep 35. Wrong again. You actually throw away the first place crossing, and you keep the third place crossing and the pack score, because those two scores added together add up to more than the first place crossing. So he would keep 40 points instead of 35 in that 10-minute interval. He gets 5 points better than a first place crossing. So that is a brief explanation of how you would do it. You know, so later in the hunt, he scores 30 points at 9:41 and 35 points at 9:48. Then there's nothing else close to it. That one's easy. It's less than 10 minutes between each other. The highest score wins. 35 points. It's where it gets into those scores in between each other. That's where it gets confusing. That's where you got 10 minutes on each side. That's where it gets confusing if you're scoring it by hand. So that's why. So like in this example in here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So he had 9 crossings with 225 possible points to be kept. Because of the times and how they are broke down, he only kept 120 points of that 225 points. So a lot of guys that see your HGA hunts and are like, man, you know, the scores are so great, but I feel like they should have been more. That's why. That's why they're not more. And once you understand that interval process, it makes things a whole lot understandable why a lot of guys say that interval process is finding a lot better of a dog. Because it doesn't let runaway scores. It doesn't let look of the draw. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong. You're talking, it could be a minute difference and still be lucky as a dog. But, and I'll get more into that here in just a second. So that's your nationals, okay? So your masters, okay? And for speaking on the nationals again, the national, that's a lot easier to see and a lot easier to understand if you look at it in person. I tried to kind of break that down as best as I could, for audio purposes. So your Masters, here's your big differences, okay? So Hounds will only be allowed to keep their highest single score with the latest time in each 10-minute or 5-minute interval. Interesting. All the scores may be discarded. Biggest score of the program is Master Fox V1. Each Master Corporation. Okay. So, let's see. Y'all bear with me. Okay. All right. So it says interval in here, but the program is in 5-minute blocks. Okay. The Masters program is in blocks. It's not in intervals. So it's different. Okay. I'm kind of surprised it says intervals. But anyway, I'm trying to make sure I'm not missing something in here. But from what I can tell, okay, from my understanding, 5-minute blocks. So the difference is, like we just said with the national system, you heard all that. I'm not going to go through it again. The 5-minute blocks or 10-minute blocks. So if the hunt starts at 4 o'clock, the dog can only keep, if you're on the 5-minute block rule, a dog can only keep one score, your highest score and latest score, from 4 o'clock to 4:04. That's 5 minutes. Okay? 4:05, you start another 5-minute block. Then you keep your highest from 4:05 to 4:09, 4:10 to 4:14, so on and so forth. Okay? So if a dog scores 3 times, first, second, fourth, in a 5-minute block from 5 o'clock to 5:04, he scores 3 times somehow. He's only keeping one of those. He's keeping the highest score. Okay. Now, if he scores at 5:04 and then scores again at 5:05, he's keeping both of those scores. No matter if it's 2 first places, doesn't matter. Okay. That is probably the bigger quarrel, and there's a lot of reasoning behind why they're using that. We're working on trying to fix that. But the program only allows 4 blocks, so that's why it is like that. I think that if the intervals are able to be installed, then I think a lot of people will get away from the blocks. I'm not a huge fan of the blocks, but I liked everything else. There's a lot of things I like about the Masters as well. The blocks are the biggest quarrel that I have, because it does have a lot of luck in those. It has a lot of luck involved in it, for the sheer fact of literally a dog can score back-to-back minutes, just if you hit it right. If you're lucky enough to hit it right, you get it. You get them. So that's your biggest difference in both of those. Okay. Now,
the Hounds podcast is happy to announce our newest partnership with Low 10 Outfitters. If your kennel is looking for new apparel to rock to the next field trial, look no further than Low 10 Outfitters. They offer shirts, hats, hoodies, coats, and other accessories with custom logos for your kennel or your hound to go on. With top quality merchandise and long-lasting quality, you can't go wrong with Low 10 Outfitters. And very soon we will be offering Hounds podcast apparel on their website at low10outfitters.com. So be on the lookout for that coming up here soon. Thank you, Low 10 Outfitters, for teaming up with the Hounds podcast. And don't forget, guys, low10outfitters.com to get your apparel for your kennels. Now, let's get you back to your episode.
Here we go. Running alone. Okay. Actually, I'll tell you what. Before we get to that, the There are two different ways to do the speed and drive in the master side. There is a 15 point, they call it 15 GTP or 5 GTP. So 15 point GTP is when you get down to 5th, it's 15 points. Then any dog after 5th place also receives 15 points until they hound dismiss. So if you get 25 dogs in a crossing and they're all dead nuts, they're doing it right, the 25th place dog is still getting 15 points, just like the 5th place dog did. You know, if they're doing it, they're getting it right, which I go back and forth. I do fight it. I fight that a lot. I'm like, man, does a 20th place dog really deserve a 5th place crossing? You know, I kind of go back and forth with it. But they are doing the work. They deserve something. I fully agree. And a lot of people are probably like, dude, you're stupid. Anything after a 6th, 7th place dog, they're not doing anything. Okay, so if your hunt association is putting on a master's hunt and that's how you think, you can do the GTP 5, which after 5th place, 5th place gets the 15, 6th place gets 10, 7th place gets 5, and nothing else past that keeps it. Nothing else. Okay, that's it. That's the other two differences. Now, a lot of your hunts don't run that. I don't know. I think so. Here's my hot topic take, and y'all can condemn me if you want to. Fox hunts. I think all fox hunts should be scored on the 15 GTP, and I think all coyotes should be done on the GTP 5. Shoot me now. That's fine. I understand. Small chase coyote pens tend, like I say all the time, tend to be small packs, small chases, no more than 7, 8, 9 dogs anyway. Usually at that point, the first 5, 6, 7 dogs are probably stretched out on the last couple in that crossing. While a good fox chase, and I've done it multiple times, and this is not just at Billy Pools, this is at other pens too, other bigger fox pens. Excuse me, could be 15 dogs in it, and these 15 dogs are dead nut on the track. They're coming out in a freaking single file line, just bam, 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 right on the money. I think those dogs deserve to get credit. So that's my controversial topic of the night. Well, one of them. So here's the fun one. Okay, a hound running a fox alone may be scored. And this is now I'm reading out of the Nationals again. Okay, guys, a hound running alone shall be scored at 20 points for running alone. Okay. And that actually goes for both. 20 points for running alone, both. Maybe you're sitting here thinking, like, why does a hound running alone only get 20 points when our first place crossing was 35 points? The reason being is he's not competing against anything. Okay? There's nobody he's beating. The only thing that he's doing is running the fox. This is a very controversial topic in the fox pen world, in the competition hunting world. This is a rule where people will argue until their face turn blue if this is right or not. Trying to think of the right direction to go with this. I don't agree with 20 points. I don't see why a dog that's doing the work, putting in the work, only deserves a 4th place crossing. I'd like to see it 25 or 30. For my opinion, 30. You want my real opinion? I think, and this is where people are you're going to hear this, and I know there's going to be people that are going to hear this and are going to roll their eyes. I can hear it. I can see the eye roll. I can hear eye rolls apparently too. So, guys, I think running a lone score should be a judge's discretion. Yeah, let that one sink in. Yeah, let that sink in, and smoke on that one for a little while. Would it ever happen? Will it ever happen? Absolutely not. It's too many variables. There's already enough judges' discretion rules where people get completely bent out of shape about. Okay. I would love to see it as a judge's discretion. Minimum 20 points, maximum 35. If you see a dog come through and the piece of game comes through and here he comes, 30 seconds later and you heard him the whole time, he's bow, 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 comes on across the street, nothing's with him. Cool. Yeah, 20 points. Yep, I'm cool with that. Yep, the dog was doing work. He was doing what he was supposed to do. He ain't pushing the game. He's just running it. He's behind it. He's smelling the track. He's on the trail. He's doing what he needs to be doing. Now, other times, when that game comes out and that dog's right behind him just absolutely breathing the same oxygen, they're trying. He's pushing that game. Where you going, boys? Let's get it. That dog, to me, deserves 35 points. If that dog is absolutely encouraging this piece of game, you better get you a booty down the road. Why would you not want that dog to have 35 points? If that dog is absolutely driving this thing, give him 35, man. That's my hot take on that. So, and we'll get into more hot takes here in a little bit. I'm going to probably ruffle some feathers. We'll see how this goes. But as of right now, 20 points. Dog running alone. Now, here's where it gets funny, okay? This is where people get confused. And this is where I wish I'd have paid more attention to the rule book, because I know that I did not pay attention to it for a long time, and I've probably given more points out than what they deserved by the rules. So, running together, scored separate. Okay? I'm going to read it from, we'll start off, I think it's the same way in both. Okay? So, one Derby Hound and two all-age hounds are in the same crossing. The Derby Hound, the Derby Hound's leading. Derby Hound crosses first. All-age dog. That's the only three dogs in a crossing. By the rules. In both books, now, the Derby Hound gets 20 points. The second place in the crossing, all-age hound, first place all-age hound gets 35, and the third place in the crossing, but second place all-age hound gets 30. So the points in the order that they come across the road would go 20, 35, 30. Because that Derby dog was the only Derby dog in that crossing, he should get 20 points by the rule book. Okay? It is a judge's responsibility to remember that. Not only remember that, but when you're writing your scores down, beside that Derby number, you need to be writing RA for running alone. Okay? By the book, that's the way it's supposed to happen. Not a fan of this. I don't think a lot of people are a fan of this, but that dog's not competing against anybody. Again, this is where my idea of running alone should be a judge's discretion would fix everything. But anyway, that's not the case, so don't pay any heed to that. The first place dog in that crossing should have wrote down beside it RA, and he will get 20 points. Now, this is where it gets extremely funky, okay? So I'm going to go back to the Nationals book for this. Let's see. All right, and again, here's just another example. If it's a two-dog crossing, the first place dog's an all-age hound, the second place dog is a Derby Hound, both dogs need RA beside it, and they both get running alone scores. All right, let's see. All right, so then of course, now if it's multiple dogs in each class, then it goes back to how it should be. So say it's a 4-dog crossing, 2 derbies, 2 all age. The first derby dog out gets 35, the second one gets 30, the first all age gets 35, the second derby gets 30. No matter where they are in the crossing. Maybe the all aged second place hound was the 4th dog in the crossing. He's still getting a first place second place score. Still gonna get 30 points because that's just where he fell in line with his, with his class. And I know a lot of people probably listen to this, especially ones maybe getting in, are like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. How do you fix it though? How do you make it better? Now, I know a conversation that is brought up on Facebook a lot. I've seen it, and I've seen this opinion, and by rules, this opinion is incorrect. So, say you are scoring a crossing, okay? And it's a big pack. So, say first dog's derby, second place dogs, all age, third place dogs, all age, fourth place dog, you missed him. You missed his number. Maybe he was running parallel. Maybe you didn't turn your eye. Maybe it was a bad painted number. Maybe it was a red dog with a black number, and you missed it. The 5th place dog that you saw was a derby dog. Okay? A lot of people are saying that you don't write down the RA beside that first place dog. And I don't know what the answer is to that question. I don't know what the answer is, if that's correct or not. To me, I agree. The dog, it's not that first place dog that the 4th place dog had a shitty number on it, or you missed it. And the next dog behind him was a derby dog. It sucks for that derby dog. And I think that's where the controversy is people say, all right, well, that first place dog doesn't deserve to be punished because you missed the 4th place dog. Well, neither does the 5th place dog. Neither does all the dogs behind it in that crossing, that because you missed the 4th place dog or somebody put a horrible freaking number on it and you couldn't read it, that all those dogs should be punished. Unfortunately, that's just the name of the game. I think, and I would love some elaboration on this, and maybe this will be going over in the class this weekend. God, I wish I could be down there for it. But I would love to know what the correct response to that is. Do you write RA beside it, or do you not write RA beside it? In my opinion, you don't write RA beside it because he was not the only derby dog in that crossing. Is that correct? I don't know. I would really like to know. I really would like to see it. It's not in the rule books that I can see. And if it is, please somebody point it out to me because I've clearly missed it. I know it says if at any time a judge fails to get the first hound running a fox at a crossing or the game at a crossing, he must disregard that crossing. Whenever a judge fails to get the number of any hound in the order of the hound's position at any crossing, he must stop with the last hound scored successfully. So there's no example of missing a dog in this, in either rule book. So I don't really know what the correct answer is to that. I don't know if there is a correct answer to that question. That's something I would love to hear. So that's your big controversy. I'm not a huge fan of the 20 points. I'm not a huge fan of the 20 points, but by the rules, by what we play by, that's what it is. So, I hope that helps people kind of understand a little bit better about the scoring in the field. All right, so now let's do some breakdowns here, okay? Let's see. All right, let's stick with the. Let's stick with the Nationals book here, and this is in case of tie. Okay, ties shall be untied completely through the 10 place in each of the 4 classes. Should 2 or more hounds be tied with the same score in any one class, the hound having the largest total daily score in all classes shall be adjusted the winner of that class. The hound having the next largest score shall be scored second, and so on. Should a tie still exist in between 2 or more hounds, it should be untied in the manner as prescribed for untying the HGA. See page 36. Let's see. In the case of a tie, the highest scored hound in the hunting class of the hound shall be the winner. If they remain tied, okay, so this is the one where, if I'm not mistaken, for the National, it was changed here recently. And before the hunt, the association can, the association can choose whether the tie is based off of speed, or if it's based off of hunting score. So I know the way that used to be was that it is based off of the hunting score, and then trailing, and then if the trailing remained tied, then it was speed and drive. But now I think you can choose, and I'm 95% sure I'm correct on this. You can choose if it is broke off of the speed and drive first, which I'm a big fan of, especially for these pins. I 110% agree that the highest speed and drive dog should get the tiebreaker over the hunting dog. So that is for the Nationals. In the case of a tie in the HGA, in the Masters, the tie-breaking rule is the highest scored hound in endurance. Then it's the highest scoring hound in speed and drive, then hunting, then trailing. And God forbid, then it gets down to the highest scored hound in speed and drive on the last day. Then the last kept time in speed and drive. Then the last kept hunting. Then the last kept trailing. So the funniest point is if you can't break it by the end of it at that, it is literally in the books it says a coin toss by the master of hounds. So that's just that's just how that's done. And then if you do it by classes in the in case of tie-in classes, the winner shall be determined by the following order: highest GTP, then highest endurance, and then it's the same, as far as that goes. But if you're doing it by the classes, then that's how you do it. Let's see. All right, so now that's pretty much the system for all your scores. Now, let's get into your scratches. Let's see what kind of feathers we can ruffle now. All right, so I'm going to try to there's going to be some that I'm going to kind of skim through. There's some old ones in here that don't really need a whole lot of attention, but I'll try to do the best that I can in reading. All right, so this is going to go to the national. We're going to start with your scratches, okay? Let's see. So one of the big ones is the Hounds will be allowed 5 minutes after cast on the first day, 3 minutes after cast on the second day, and 2 minutes after cast on the third day to be reported to the judges by the judges for babbling. Let's see. Every all-age hound mouthing tracks other than fox, deer, bobcat, or wolf tracks shall be reported by the judges in their meeting, and hounds may only be eliminated by a majority of vote for the judges. Persistent rabbit running shall be classed as one form of interfering with a chase. So if your dog is running a rabbit in the middle of a field trial, it should be considered interfering with the hunt and scratched. Any hounds shall be scratched for babbling. Babbling is defined as giving false tongue to the extent of interfering with the chase. In case of a hound babbling to the extent of interfering with hounds or the chase and seen by 2 or more judges who agree that such is the case, the hound can be ordered tied up or crated by the judges. This is an important one. This is one I think gets overlooked in the field a lot. And I think it could save a lot of hunts. That should be agreed upon by 2 or more judges, and maybe that's something that needs to be brought up a little bit more in for the master hounds and some of these hunts. I think it's something that should be brought to the attention of everybody and said, like, look, if you got a dog that you're walking through you're walking through and you're like, man, that number 71 dog has babbled a lot, and the other judge says, yes, it's babbled a lot, and it is messing chases up. That right there should be, if like it says in the rule book, in case of a hound babbling to the extent of interfering with hounds or the chase and seen by 2 or more judges who agree that such is the case, that hound can be ordered tied up or crated. So, I mean, somebody correct me if I'm wrong in this, but that right there, to me, says, put it up. Call the master hounds, get in touch with him, and get that dog crated. Take him back to the front gate. Tell him, get that mouthy SOB out of here. Get him out. Again, I'm still reading from the Nationals right now. So, let's see. A hound shall not be considered babbling should he be running as much as 30 yards downwind from a track. That's give or take 30 yards each direction. Or should he continue to give tongue a few times on a run over, or should he give 1 or 2 eager mouths at a bad fence when harking to running hounds, except that a hound remains at a fence and continues to give tongue, so it should be scratched after that. In other words, it's kind of an old school right on that. But if the dog is just excited barks and hits a few excited barks, he should not be considered babbling. Let's see. A lot of these are so... I'm trying to kind of pick through. Hounds running deer must not be scratched, nor can they be scored. All judges must do within their power is to break up a deer race. This is more obviously specific for the outside. A hound cannot be scored on a deer by the book, but it cannot be scratched either. Let's see. A hound that shows no inclination to hunt may be reported for loafing by the judges at their meeting. So you can scratch a dog for loafing if a dog has no inclination to continue the hunt. In conjunction with the rules specifically mentioned, a hound may be eliminated for any misbehaviors in the field when the opinion of the judges such behavior is a fault, which would mar the characteristics for ideal field champion, or which might be detrimental to the chase. Judges who shall use discretion in scoring and scratching hounds. At no point should two or more judges ride together unless following a pack of hounds in full cry. That's more specific for the outside. All right, and the last biggest thing, and this is where my biggest quarrel is with the rule book, and I've been vocal about this, maybe a little bit more than I probably should, and maybe I've probably ruffled feathers when being vocal about it, but so this is legit, and it took me a second to actually track it down. I had to pause the recording a couple times to make sure I didn't miss it, and just kind of double check myself. So this is all the book has for other scratches. Hounds guilty of such actions as running stock pass, running hounds or horse tracks, backtracking or running a covered track, babbling at a stream, or indiscriminate babbling shall be scratched. That's all it says. That's all this book says. This is where my biggest quarrel is, and we're gonna move into the Masters too. But as far as the national book goes, that is one of the rules that I wish there would be some explanation with. I wish there was something that described each of these scratches, what they were, and how to look for said scratches, because guys getting in, and even me, there's a couple of these I have no idea. Like, I don't know what running stock pass is. I don't know what they mean by that. I have no idea. Never heard of it. Never seen it. I don't know. I have no idea. Never had that situation brought to my attention, and maybe that's an old thing. Maybe that's something. That's an outside thing. It has to be. I don't know. What is? I mean, I know what these. This. I know what backtracking is, but maybe you're just getting in. Maybe at what point do you scratch for backtracking? That can be a whole nother. God, we could go into hours on talking about this kind of stuff. Running a backtrack. Running a covered track. Running a hound. Running dog tracks. At what point does indiscriminate babbling come into play? There's so much gray area. Like, this is, to me, scratching is just as important as scoring a hound. If a hound is messing up, then the hound should be taken care of. So that's all it says in this book about scratches. That's your scratching explanation. It's very vague. It's very broken up. And it's a lot to go back, and you really have to dive into this book to even find any kind of explanation on anything of it. Now let's move into the Masters. Let's see. All right, so all right, the first one in the scratching hounds on the Masters is any hounds left on a jump, and that's in quotations, or thrown out on a loss. So in other words, the dog is in a chase, and I may be misreading this, but this is my explanation. This is the way I'm understanding. The hound is in a chase. He gets thrown out of the chase, and it buckles him for a second. It should not be penalized if it works to quote unquote get in and succeeds in a reasonable amount of time. If a chase breaks down, if he gets tossed out of a chase, if he overruns it, and he sits there for a second and says, all right, let me get my bearings straight, that dog should not be scratch for loafing. Or maybe a fox went in a hole, okay, and the dog comes out, hits the road, and is like, all right, which way do I need to get moving? You know, where's my next attack plan? The way this is wrote is, if he makes an effort to get in and get back to work in a reasonable amount of time, and you have to use your discretion on what a reasonable amount of time is, that hound should not be penalized. All right, now bear with me here, okay? Read it word for word. This is babbling in the Masters now. Babbling is a fault for which hounds should be scratched. Babbling is defined as giving false tongue to the extent of interfering with the chase. In case a hound babbling to the extent of interfering with hounds or the chase and seen by 2 or more judges who agree that such is the case, this hound can be ordered tied up. So same for both books. Same for both rule classes. If 2 or more judges agree, the hound can be crated and taken out of the equation. The reason being, guys, it's interfering with so much. There's been multiple hunts where guys are like, man, that 17 dog is bad. He's babbling. Oh yeah, I got him too. Oh yeah, I got him too. Oh, I got him too. And you see that dog like 3 or 4 times pulling dogs and messing up chases, and he's the only one pulling a pack of 30 dogs following this dog, thinking, okay, maybe this dog's doing something, and these dogs are following him. They're screwing these other dogs out. Now don't get me wrong. The other dog should be smart enough after a few minutes to say, all right, this guy's an idiot. We got to move on. But it's also, by the rules, our responsibility as judges to take care of that hound. And it's the same. Hounds will be allowed 5 minutes on the first, 3 the second, 2 the third and the fourth day before reported for babbling. Any hound should be considered for babbling as much as 30 yards downwind, so it's the same for both. As far as the babbling scratches go, that seems to be pretty well the same of what a babbling. Persistent hound, rabbit running, same thing. All right. Let's see. And this book is the same way. Hounds guilty of such actions as running stock, stock pass, horse tracks, hound tracks, covered tracks, or back tracks may be scratched. Judges must be very careful when scratching a hound in an enclosure for these faults. I want to repeat that last part. Judges must be very careful when scratching hounds in an enclosure for these faults. Do I need to say it again? Be careful with these guys. I mean, I'm not going to go down the rant of the cover track rule. God, I hate that freaking rule in a fox pen. I think it is the stupidest rule. I think it needs to be eliminated. I think there needs to be a notation in there of not in a freaking fox pen or a coyote pen. Stupid. Anyway, moving on. That's all the explanation they get. Okay, you don't get no more than that. Let's see. Any hound that shows no inclination to hunt may be scratched for loafing. A dog that comes up to you and parks it and lays down beside you for whatever you deem is an unacceptable amount of time, scratch it for loafing. All right, now, here's the big one. This is the biggest difference, and this ruffles feathers a lot. And I want to give my opinion on it after I read it. Before any hound may be eliminated for balking faults of babbling, running covered tracks, running back tracks, or running dog tracks, the hound must be recommended for elimination by at least 2 different judges during the course of the field trial. Any one of the above 4 named barking faults have to be reckoned by 2 different judges at 2 different occurrences, or any combination of the above 4 named barking faults recommended twice by 2 different judges justify elimination. In other words, and let me finish reading this. On the daily score sheet, all of the scratch times must be posted. Notations must be made of these barking faults did not occur on the same day. Let's see. All right. Yeah, and you cannot just use one of these to eliminate a hound. That's pretty much what the rest of the rule says. So anyway, That's the biggest difference. National rules allow you, if I see a dog babbling, if I see a dog run a covered track or a back track, I'm not going to scratch for covering a track. Just maybe. It's going to have to be completely blatant, and somebody's going to have to do a better job at explaining it to me. But if I see a dog running, babbling, or running a back track, and I see it, and I scratch it in nationals, that dog's done. It's a one-scratch rule. It's out of here. Masters, for those 4 barking faults, it is eliminated. It needs 2 different judges and 2 different occurrences. So, in other words, if I scratch it on day 1 for running a back track, and Billy Bob on day 2 scratches it for babbling, then that dog is eliminated after he scratches it for babbling. It does not get scratched officially until 2 different judges do it. So this is one that there's a lot of different opinions. And I'm going to give my opinion and why. There are here. I like the 2 scratch barking rule. I love the 2 scratch barking rule, and here's my biggest reason. I have multiple reasons, but here's my biggest one. We're not perfect out there. We are not perfect. Maybe, for example, if I'm watching a section, maybe I'm posted up right in the middle of this section. I hear the chase coming. I hear a dog coming, and I'm hearing one dog maybe give a little bit of mouth behind him. But I hear one dog out front, just bam, 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 constantly giving mouth, and not much going on behind him. I'm looking back and forth, trying to look for game, trying to get my eyes fixated in one direction so I can keep your lookout. I'm just stuck in the middle. Okay? Dog finally comes out, goes across the road, bow, 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 bow. 2 other dogs behind it, not giving any tone. What's your first thought? Your first thought is, okay, that dog was babbling. And I'm going to probably agree with you. I would probably write it for babbling. But who's to say that I did not miss that game and that dog was right and the other dogs just ain't worth a crap? If a dog is bad enough and is doing the wrong things, he's going to do it more than once. I'm trying to think of the best way to word it. We're asking these dogs to be perfect for however long your hunt is. 5 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours, 4-day hunts. You're asking these dogs to not make one single mistake. You're asking these judges to not make one single mistake in exhausting conditions. And I think to give benefit of the doubt to both the judges and the dogs, I like the 2 scratch rule. For that reason, I've watched on multiple occurrences where a judge will be at a coyote pen. Maybe you're facing down the road and getting a crossing. Maybe you're scoring this thing. You're scoring. And behind your back, you hear another dog coming. And while you're scoring the other crossing, a coyote crosses the road. You turn around to make an attempt to get that dog that's coming on the other coyote. You miss the game. But you see 2 dogs come across the road giving mouth on nothing. Some judges will pop those dogs for babbling instead of giving the dogs the benefit of the doubt. That's why I like a 2 scratch rule. That is the biggest reason that I like a 2 scratch rule. If a dog is bad enough and a dog is truly messing up, he's going to do it more than once. He's going to do it in front of other judges as well. That's why I like the 2 scratch rule. This makes it a clear cut. This dog was really screwing up. This dog was a terrible dog that day. He did it on 2 different occasions. He's bad. He's got to go. And I tell you, if you've ever been a part of a judges meeting after a hunt, and you're sitting there and you call out your hound, you know, and the master of hounds is like, all right, do we have any hogs that got scratched from number 20 to number 30? And 2 people will pop up and say, yep, number 26. Oh, I got him at 953. Oh, I got him at 650. All right, then just give me the 950. Now that's for nationals, okay? You know, most of the time, your dogs that do get scratched are getting hit by more than one judge anyway. So why not have the 2 scratch rule to make sure you didn't make a mistake as well? That's my biggest thing with it. And also, and here's the one that's I'm trying to think of the correct way to word this without ruffling feathers. Maybe some judges are making calls that shouldn't be made. Maybe they're too hard on a dog. And I know that's like, some people have probably just heard that and are like, oh my God, too hard on a dog. No, we're crowning champions. We have to be as hard as you could possibly be on a dog. I agree to a point. I agree to a point. You need to be hard on them. You need to whack the dogs that need to be whacked. They need to be gone, you know. But you also need to, like I said earlier, you got to understand these are dogs, and they are getting pushed to extremes that none of our, I mean, except for a few people that I've seen, most of us are so out of shape, God forbid, we try to run from one end of the pen to the other. So, we're trying to make these dogs be 110% perfect. And some of these guys are whacking these dogs way too fast. Some of these judges, I think a judge should give the dog the benefit of the doubt instead of assuming. I think assuming happens enough to where the dog should have the grace of not getting scratched by somebody assuming and being incorrect. I think that's the best way probably to word that situation is give the dog the benefit of the doubt. I know, for example, when I'm judging and I see a dog, I give myself a 2 scratch rule per dog. If I see a dog and I'm not 100% convinced that, you know, now if I'm facing a direction and I'm watching, I've got my eyes fixated. I'm 110%. This is the way I was watching. I did not move my eyes for the past 10 minutes. I've been watching. Okay? And a dog comes by, pow, 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 and he's got 30 dogs behind him and not a single one of them are barking. That dog's going down. He's done. Especially if he comes out in the road, goes down the road, bop, 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 pulling dogs down the freaking road. That dog's done. Whacked. Out of here. Get him gone. Now, the beauty of the 2 scratch rule is more than likely if that dog is doing that, he's going to get seen by somebody else. But if I'm judging a national hunt, okay, and something different happens, like something I explained earlier where the dog pulled it across the road and maybe one dog tried to give some mouth but didn't really give a lot of clarification bark, I'm not going to score the hound, but I'm going to make a note off to the side. I'm going to say, okay, hey, hound 35, watch for babbling. And then maybe day 2, the same thing happens, but he's got 10 dogs behind him this time, and he's the only one giving mouth. I look back at my notes. I say, oh, I done already got him down to watch for this. Then I'll scratch him. I'm going to say, okay, you've had 2 chances. You've messed up 2 times in front of me. Now you're out of here. You're done. Okay? That's the way that I like to do it. I give the dog the benefit of the doubt. If I say, man, I just missed it. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I missed that game. Maybe that was something that I am responsible for. Then I'm going to give that dog the benefit of the doubt, and I'm not going to scratch him. I'm going to make a note, and then I'm going to get him later when he screws up again. But, that's the way that I like to do it. So, continue with the Master's Rule Book. Before any hound may be eliminated for failure to hark, that hound must be recommended for elimination by at least 2 different judges as well on 2 different occurrences. So failure to hark falls in the same kind of lines as any the barking faults listed before. Failure to hark shall be defined as any hound not showing any inclination to join an established race on proper game in the immediate area. For example, fail to hark scratch shall be utilized when a judge observes a hound constantly traveling back and forth within a road or pathway with no inclination to hunt or not join a race on proper game within the immediate area. It should also be utilized when a hound is continuously traveling back and forth within a roadway or pathway playing a pack of hounds but not proceeding to attempt to join the race. The judge must be confident that a hound in question has failed to hark to establish race or program. This failure to hark scratch must not be confused with a now illegal scratch of cunning running, whereby a hound would simply be utilizing a road or pathway to the easiest and quickest way to get and join a race on proper game within the immediate area. Also, it is legal for a judge to intentionally scratch a hound for loafing when the hound should be scratched for failure to hark. So, This is another funky one. And I like that this book did this good of a job explaining this. And I would assume the Nationals is going to be somewhat along the same lines. So in other words, if you see a dog fall out in the road and it boogies down the freaking road and maybe it goes around the corner and you miss it, but it jumps back in the chase, and then 15 minutes later you catch it in a crossing. That's an old school cunning running. It's cutting to a chase. Whatever you want to call it. Trying to get to the front. A lot of guys will say that. That's when their dogs are around the road and they say, "Oh, yeah, just getting to the front." Yeah, okay. But anyway, I got dogs that do it too. Don't worry. So, and now if you see that dog just from this, if this dog goes up the road, goes around the corner, and then he comes back down the road and goes on past you, goes around the corner, then a few minutes later you see him coming back down the road, going back the other way. Then a few minutes later, you see him coming back down the road and going back the other way, just constantly in that road, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. A lot of times not making any attempt to get in a race. Maybe a race just came by and the dog saw it and he just sat there and looked at it. Said, yeah, I'm not doing that. And then took off down the road and going another way. That's a failure to hark. Get him. Gone. Bye-bye. Out of here. Let's see. A barking fault of babbling, running covered tracks, running back tracks, or running dog tracks is not to be combined with a fail to hark fault to eliminate a hound from competition. Elimination requires 2 barking faults from 2 separate judges or 2 fail to harks from 2 separate judges. That's an important one. It's not a combination of failure to hark and running backtracks. It is one or the other. It's either 2 barking faults or 2 failure to harks. All right. So that's a good explanation of your scratches. That's the best I got for you. There are several of these barking faults that I wish that they would really emphasize. I wish they would do a better job of explaining what these are. I'm hoping that some of these classes we have, these experienced judges will do such thing. And I'm hoping that maybe down the road, maybe I can get, especially if I can get to one of these classes, maybe I can team up with these guys and we can present this live, or something, or maybe I record it and we can bring it to y'all or something like that. But so that's pretty much what we're going to, you cover today. There's lots more in there. There's a whole section on the bench show. There's a whole section on, there's other sections on a lot of different stuff. But to really get involved, and maybe this was a good refresher on some people that haven't looked at a rule book in a long time or had the chance to observe one. This is a good refresher for some people, and I hope that it did. I hope that it was something everybody enjoyed listening to. Biggest question I get asked is, where do I get one? If you want a national rule book, contact the Chase Publishing Company and get you one order and get you one sent to you. And then I think now there's two options for the Masters. You just get up with Ronnie or Lori from the Masters, or I think you can contact the Hunter's Horn and get it as well. I think both of those options are there to get a Masters rule book presented to you. So that is something I think everybody should do and keep a refresher for themselves up to date. And I hope this helped everybody. And I think that's pretty much what I want to cover. There wasn't a whole lot going on as far as hunts go. So the only one that I got the results for was the palmito, or not bento. That's cheese. I don't really know how to say it. Palmito? I don't know. Classic. Was down at Tally Ho Fox Pen. The best mouth was, Lead Dog Wildman, and that dog's out of East Editso T-Rex, and Lord, how do you say that name? Mizzles Diva from Lead Dog Kennels. Then the combination winner, Classiest Hound, and the winner of the Derby Hunt was Bad Weather Lemon Drop, and that dog was out of Red Hill Wallace and Red Hill Mountain Dew from the Highwayman. Let's see. I want to give a big shout out to my buddy Doug Fuqua that was down there. Placed the dog off of some of my breeding, so very happy to see that. Old High Towers Big Show off of his Mo Money dog and our Heartbreaker Jip. So congratulations, buddy. Congratulations to everybody else that placed down there, guys. I'm sorry I didn't have a whole lot of results for you. If there was more and I missed them, I do apologize. But anyway, I hope this did good for y'all. I got some. I'm still working on trying to get some guests lined up. I'm trying my best, guys. I've reached out to people and just can't seem to get anybody to bite. So I'm trying to do the best I can to keep this thing going and do something for y'all, guys. So I can't wait to get some guests on here and bring y'all some stuff I know everybody will enjoy. And I'll be at the Tidewater here in a couple weeks and hope to see y'all there. So everybody, thank y'all so much for listening, guys. And like always, happy hunting.